I've been a prisoner of the sea on this deserted island, and my solitude has become too heavy to bear. I feel I'm about to lose my sanity, in spite of my efforts, in spite of the exhausting work I have imposed on myself, even in spite of my prayers. I was right to continue watching. A sail on the horizon. I think I'm going crazy. I've got to keep calm. This is no time to lose my head. My God, is it possible? I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to speak to other men. Where is that ship? There is no ship. There never was one. A mirage. My solitude is causing me to have hallucinations. Is this the beginning of madness? I'd rather destroy myself than have that happen. I must fight against my despair, against the temptation to die. I mustn't let myself become an animal. I'm already starting to lose all notion of time. I make a tremendous effort to recall the exact number of days which have gone by since my arrival here. Luckily, I've kept track of the number of days I required to accomplish each one of my tasks. All I have to do is to tally the total on a post which is going to serve me as a calendar. One notch for a day, a cross for Sundays. How many posts will I have marked by the time I'm found? I didn't find any clothes on the Esmeralda. Mine are all worn out. I have a stock of sailcloth. It will be a bit rough, but an Englishman hasn't the right to walk around nude, even if no one is looking. I would never have believed it was so difficult to cut and put together some bits of cloth. At last, after 1,000 tries, here I am decently dressed. I'm more than a little proud. I do the round of the island in my new suit to show all the inhabitants the elegance of their lord and master. It must have been started by the small fire which I keep burning near the cave. Still and all, I'd taken every precaution. And the gunpowder. The cave is full of gunpowder. Everything will blow up. Exactly what I thought. A spark from this fire set everything aflame. I never imagined that this sailcloth and this green wood were so combustible. But the violent sun of this country dries everything. All my furniture, which took such pains to make, everything has to be done over again. I was almost happy today. I had made myself a handsome suit. I thought I was a king. It was too good to be true. I have weeks of work ahead now. Fortunately, my little companions are safe and sound. That's the main thing. After all, I have no right to complain. When one owns a palace, one has to face the perils of fire. Oh, well, Robinson, roll up your sleeves and go to work again. To cheer myself up, all I have to do is think of the situation I was in when I was reduced to slavery and earmarked for death. I found myself close to a stagnant pond, yet I would have drunk with great delight. But they had carried their cruelty so far as to tie me out of reach of the water. Suddenly, a means of escape occurred to me. It was infallible, like all escape plans. I didn't have the strength to pull out the stake I was tied to, but a camel would have no trouble doing it for me. All I had to do was take hold of the camel's halter that Almighty God had mercifully placed at the right distance, then tie the halter to my stake. All that remained to do was frighten the camel by throwing stones at it. He would tug at the halter with all his might and pull the stake out like a carrot. I carried out my escape plan beautifully. But I was betrayed by the poor quality of the local materials. My master, the emir, looked upon me as a worthless wretch. I couldn't argue it, since my father shared the same opinion. But the emir exchanged me for a camel, which my father would never have done. These people had only one way to express themselves, the whip. My new master soon realized he had struck a bad bargain and traded me for a donkey. At each transaction, my value dropped. The next day, I was only worth 3 goats. No, 1 goat. To spare my pride, they settled on 2 goats. My value then dropped to 2 baskets of oranges. Finally, I was traded for 2 baskets of fish. Not even fresh at that. The fishmonger, named Kazir, entrusted my education to young Ali, the first kind soul I'd met in a long while. During these moments, my dreary days at law school seemed like some kind of paradise lost. To think I'd fled all that, only to come here and scrape scales off slimy fish crawling with flies. Kazir didn't trust anyone. He was always armed to the teeth, which never failed to startle me. He couldn't have become very rich, since he attracted more flies than customers. Judging from his waist, he had the appetite of a sultan. But I had little time for such reflections. The whip, always the whip. From the day I came to his defense, Ali became my faithful and devoted friend. With his help, I was able to hide a store of provisions on Kazir's boat. I must escape by sea. It was my only chance. My supplies were still insufficient, and I decided not to risk escaping for several weeks. And then the opportunity presented itself, sooner than I expected. He was off balance. A backward stroke of the oar. I was free. I knew that Kazir was an excellent swimmer. I was sure he'd reach the shore without difficulty. And yet, there he was, drowning before my very eyes. If I saved him, I'd be a slave again. If I let him drown, my conduct would be unworthy of a civilized man. I hadn't the heart to let him die. I saved his life, at the same time sacrificing my freedom. So that's why he was always on, and why he almost drowned. The weight of the gold dragged him under. Moral, you can get rich in any business, even selling rotten fish. Burning with anger, I threw him back into the sea. To escape possible pursuers, I headed for the open sea and rowed without stopping until I was exhausted. I hoped to cross the sea lanes of the great European ships that sailed off the African coast. Suddenly, the coastline disappeared. I found myself on the high seas. I took stock of my meager supplies. They were meager indeed. I had been forced to escape too soon. I could only pray that Providence would let me meet a ship as rapidly as possible. Otherwise, I would surely die of hunger, and above all, thirst. I carefully gathered up Kazir's gold. It couldn't be of any use to me in the middle of the ocean, but I was spurred on less by greed than by hope. The hope of one day having a chance to spend it.